Morning, everyone. I'm going to let a few people come in and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, it's 12, so we'll get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Financial Fridays with SAANYS and Equitable. Today's topic is all about New York State pension. SAANYS is excited to offer these sessions in cooperation with our corporate partner, Equitable Advisors. Equitable has been a long-standing presence in New York, and a large portion of the New York client base is built upon the work they do within the public education system. Through Equitable, SAANYS members can receive competitive insurance rates and a full array of retirement services, including a complimentary financial profile for SANY's members, which we urge you to take advantage of. It's a great benefit for membership. Joining us today is Joe Scrow from Equitable. We'll have questions at the end of the presentation, but feel free to add your questions into the chat at any time. Our Q&A time is best for general questions, but just know that Equitable team is available at any time to answer your questions. You'll find contact information for Joe and other regional Equitable representatives at sanys.org, and I'll turn it over to Joe.
All right. Thank you. Hopefully everybody is doing well. Again, my name is Joe Scrow, one of the vice presidents here for Equitable Advisors. Now I'm located out of our Syracuse office, but we have offices all across the New York State region there. Today, what we'll do is we'll dive into the New York State pension system. This is a very important topic for a lot of us here in the room, right? Because this is going to be one of our largest retirement assets as we get closer or throughout our retirement years. So it's very important to understand really what is the New York State pension, how does it work, what are the different tiers, calculations, how to maximize your pension. Those are some of the conversations that we'll go through here today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. I got it all pulled up, so hopefully we're good to go. All right. Now, can you see my screen, or is it my desktop?
It is your screen, New York State pension.
Okay, perfect. So we are good to go. So again, we'll dive into the New York State pension system, talking about the different tiers. What does it look like for you there? Also to the payout options. Now, this is something that a lot of people, we sit down, we meet with a lot of people from the education system. Some people know that there's different options. Some people don't. So we'll kind of go through today. Really, what are those options? What are some of the more popular options people do end up selecting? And then as well as supplementing your pension, right? Taking a look at that gap. What can you do now throughout your working careers as you get closer to electing your pension? So the biggest factor is determining what tier you fall into for your working career. So here are all the tiers currently for the New York State pension. Tier 3, and all the tiers are based off of when you first started your employment with New York State. So tier 3 is from 1976 to 1983. So if you first started working throughout those years, you fall into the tier 3 category. Tier 4 is from 1983 to 2009. Tier 5 is kind of a rare tier. It was really only open for 2 years, so 2010 to 2012. And then finally, tier 6 is going to be anybody that started after April 1st of 2012. So some of the tiers, they do have some common factors. Some of them, they're drastically different, which we'll walk through here today. So a lot of the times, the people that we are meeting with, they may fall into what's called the tier 3 or the tier 4 pension system. Now, how this pension system works is for the first 10 years of employment with the system, those employees would contribute 3% of their salary directly towards the retirement system. 3% didn't matter how much they made for the first 10 years. And then once they hit that 10-year mark, they no longer have to make contributions, which is awesome. So that is really to make you eligible for the pension. Now, when somebody goes to retire, their pension system is always going to be based off of these two factors that you see right here. How many years of service did that employee work? And then what was their final average salary when they did decide to retire? So here's a quick breakdown for tier 4 and the way that it works. So you can see 10 years gets you 16%, 20 years is 40, 30 years is 60%. And the way that that breaks down is based off of how many years of service. So for those first 20 years, you get 1.66% per year worked. Then when you jump up to 20, it's 2 years per years of service. And then you can see that equates 30 years to 60%. And then if you do work past that 30 years of service mark, you do get an additional 1.5% per year. Okay, so a lot of times people do ask me, well, Joe, I heard that I'm capped at 30 years. No, that's not the case. If you do work past that 30 years of service, your percentage of your financial average salary does continue to increase down the road there. Your final average salary, what that is, it's just your highest 3 consecutive working years inside the system. Now, for most people, it is going to be the final 3 years. Not always the case. Sometimes people can bounce around between positions, right? Maybe they start out at a lower paying salary, go to a higher, and then kind of tear off and jump down to another position. But for most people, as they take a look at their contract increases with their current school districts, those final 3 years are most likely going to be their highest average consecutive there. So again, when you go to retire or when you go to elect your pension, right, your pension income is going to be based again off of the years of service that you worked and then your final average salary. They multiply them together, and then that's going to be your pension income. Now with Tier 4, there is something called the full retirement age. So New York State wants you to work until you hit one of 2 of these special points here. Full retirement age is going to be age 55 with 30 years of service, or age 62 with at least 5 years of service. Okay, so those are really the 2 retirement ages somebody wants to key in on as far as when they can elect to receive their full pension option. Now, if somebody does retire at age 55 with less than 30 years of service, or it could be age 57 with less than 30 years, right? If they retire and they don't have that 30 years of service mark, New York State is actually going to hit them with a reduction. Okay, so taking a look at Tier 4 here, right? If they do end up retiring at 62, there's no 0% reduction. But then every year closer to age 55, it's going to be a higher reduction, right? So 61, it's a 6% reduction. 60, it's a 12%. 59, 18, right? So it keeps going back. The earliest would be that age 55 without 30 years of service. New York State's actually going to take a 27% reduction from your pension. Okay, that is something to just keep note on. If you can't fulfill that 30 years of service and you do want to retire in between 55 or 62, there's most likely going to be some sort of reduction from your pension. And we'll actually come back to this. We'll talk about it in different scenarios as we continue talking about the pension. So here's a good case study, right? So let's, for example, say Jane here is a Tier 4 member. Her final average salary was somewhere around 100,000, right? To be very easy. And she worked 33 years of service, okay? So she was in the system for 33 years. So the way that calculation would work is, again, for those first 30 years, she would get 2% for each year worked. Plus she would get those additional 3 years over 30, 1.5%. So her total percentage would be 64.5%. What they do is they then take that percentage number, multiply it by 100,000, whatever her final average salary was at that point in time. And then this would be Jane's full pension option, right? $64,500 per year would be her guaranteed income that she would receive on a yearly basis. Okay. That's again, if she were to retire at full age and then take the max option, which we'll again talk later as we go through this. Now, Tier 5, again, is kind of our special tier. It was only active for 2 years, again, from 2010 to 2012. Tier 5, their full retirement age is going to be age 57 with 30 years of service, or again, that's 62 with at least 5 years of service. Now, the difference between Tier 4 and Tier 5 is that Tier 5 members do have to contribute 3.5% of their income for all the years that they work inside the system. Okay, so Tier 4, Nice benefit is that you only had to contribute for those first 10 years. Tier 5, they actually stretch that out over the course of somebody's entire career, okay? Very similar though for the years of service, right? As you can see, there's actually a breakpoint at 25 years of service. But same thing, once you hit that 30 years service mark, you get your 60%. And then your final average salary is again going to be those highest 3 consecutive years, okay? So very similar to tier 4. The difference is that 55 with 30 years is actually bumped up to 57 with 30 years. And then again, those contributions towards the New York State retirement system, it's not going to be for the first 10 years. It's going to be for the entire duration. It's going to be 3.5% of your income. So here's another example. Again, let's say that Jane, her final average salary was right around 99,000. She wanted to work till age 62. Perfect. So we again go through the calculations. 32 years of service in this scenario. So she would get 63% of her final average salary. And then again, if she was making somewhere around 99, we'll call it, multiply that by the 0.63. So her full pension option would be 62,370 per year, every year in retirement until the day that she passed away. All right. The last tier is tier 6. Now this tier is drastically different than tier 4 and tier 5. It's definitely the least liked tier that we see from New York State. So the way that tier 6 works is it's going to be very similar to tier 5, where members do have to contribute every year that they're inside of the system, but their contributions are going to be based off of how much money they make on a yearly basis. So the scale is 3 to 6, can never go above 6. However, the more money somebody does make, the higher the percentage they're going to have to put inside and give to New York State to be eligible to receive that pension. Now, the way that tier 6 works, we're going to be a little bit different on that percentage for the years of service. So essentially, you can see there at 20 years of service, you get 35%. And then anything additionally above 20 years, it's actually at 2% per year. So you can see from 20 to 30, it'd be 55%. And then it continues on moving forward there. For that, on the additional 2 percentage points per year. Final average salary is not going to be the highest 3 consecutive years. It's actually going to be the highest 5 consecutive years. Okay, so it's a little bit further of a stretch. Again, for most people, it's just going to be those last 5 years, depending on special situations. But again, it's going to be the highest 5 consecutive years, not the highest 3 consecutive years. Now, the biggest difference between tier 4, tier 5 versus tier 6 is that tier 6, their full retirement age is just age 63. Okay. New York State really doesn't care how many years of service somebody accrues. They just care that they retire at age 63. So what that means is that for a brand new educator, teacher, right, somebody coming into the education system, maybe right out of college, if they wanted to work the entire course, their full retirement age would be age 63. Depending on how old they came into the education system, that could be close to 40, 41 years of service. Okay. So reason why they did this is for career changers, right? They noticed an issue in tier 4 and tier 5 where, if somebody were to change careers midway through their life, it's going to be very hard for them to build up 30 years of service if they're not coming into this thing right out of college. So it is a little bit more flexible for some of those career changers coming into the education space and environment. However, it really is unfortunate for somebody coming in brand new out of college, because now instead of 30 years of service, if they really wanted to work the distance, it'd be closer to 40, 41 years of service. Now, the reduction points for tier 6 are going to be even higher. So kind of like how we talked about, it'd be a 27% reduction for somebody who wanted to retire at 55 with less than 30 years of service. If somebody in tier 6 wanted to retire at age 55, regardless of how many years of service they have, New York State's going to take a 52% reduction from their pension number. So they're essentially going to cut that thing in half. Okay. So for tier 6 members, it's really important to one, know that, hey, my full retirement age isn't 55 with 30 years or 57 with 30 years. My full retirement age is 63. So if I want to leave early, I can definitely do so, right? But I need to have a game plan or another account for assets that I can pull if I do end up taking a reduction from my pension, or if I wait to elect to receive my pension down the road at age 63. So there's a lot of different strategies that we walk through with clients. Just wanted to give you the difference between all three of those tiers that we typically see. Okay, so here's a case study, right? And I illustrated this out, right? Somebody coming brand new from college, age 22 to 63. Again, that's 41 service credits or years of service. Now, good side of that is that that's going to be a pretty high reduction or pretty high pension, right? If somebody is making around that same, again, 100,000, which, at that point probably be a lot higher. You times that by 77%, that's a pretty high pension of 77,000 per year. So the pensions are going to be very healthy, but again, the trade-off is that going to have to work an additional 10, 11 years compared to tier 4 and tier 5. Now, this is a really good graph that I like to show a lot of the clients that we sit down and we meet with, that really represents a lot of our retirement pictures moving forward, right? So I always like to show it on a graph. So you can think of the left-hand side there, that's somebody's income, and then the bottom is going to be retirement. So as you can see, New York State pension, it's a guaranteed stream of income every year in retirement. It's a fantastic benefit. I wish I had a pension for myself. The issue with the pension is that it's going to relatively remain flat. You can see there's a small increase near the end here. There is a tiny cost of living adjustment inside the pension, but it's nothing really to bank on, right? That New York State pension is going to be pretty much flat throughout somebody's entire career. Now, also available to us is Social Security, depending on your age and really your beliefs, right? Social Security is still around to take for our clients today. I know a lot of times when we do retirement plans and retirement projections, some people don't even like to include their Social Security estimations because there is so much discussions in the air as far as, is Social Security still going to be around? Is it going to look a lot different? Right. So that may still be a factor into somebody's retirement situation. But again, a lot of people are planning to do it without it. But really the biggest conversation that we have with all of our clients is just inflation, right? That's a term that a lot of people are very familiar with in today's day and age over the past couple of years. Just the cost of living continuously increases, right? Whether it's rent, cars, insurance, gas, groceries, right? We all feel it at the gas pump. We all feel it at the grocery store. But inflation and the cost of prices are always going to continuously keep increasing, right? So where does that really play into our retirement plans? Well, if we have a relatively flat New York State pension, relatively flat Social Security, initially there's probably not going to be a very large gap between our living expenses and the income that we're receiving. But as time progresses, right, as cost of living continuously increases, there's going to be a pretty large gap here between our fixed income streams and then the rising costs of the economy, what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So that's really where your retirement accounts, right, whether it is a 403B, 457, TDA, IRAs, right, all these different types of retirement accounts come into play later down the road, where if we're continuously receiving that flat stream of income and the prices, goods and services keep increasing, we have another asset that we can pull money out of that we can go ahead and pay our living expenses, pay travel costs, right, everything like that. So good conversation to have, right? Something to always think about is, yes, initially for my retirement, right? If I get my 60, 65%, that's great. But later down the road, it could be an issue when taking a look at your retirement plan. Okay, so let's talk about pension options. Now, some people, again, know about the pension options, some don't, but let's take a look here. Now, for somebody's New York State pension, when they end up going to retire, there's a bunch of different options that somebody can take as far as how do they want to receive that pension, right? So a lot of our clients, not everybody, but a lot of our clients would like to leave a pension income behind for maybe a significant other or a spouse. That's great. And we can definitely do that, right? New York State does provide us the ability that if we were to pass away as the member, then those pension checks can continue to come home in some sort of way or fashion. So a lot of us are familiar with what's called the single life option. So again, that would be your 100% benefit. So in this example, right, we're going to say Jane is 55 years old. Her spouse is 50 years old, right? And her pension amount is going to be just under $42,000. Okay. So that would be the calculations that we just saw from those case studies. That's 100% her benefit. Now, again, we receive 100% of the benefit, which is great. But in the single life option, if Jane is to pass away, then no more pension checks come home to her spouse or to her family. What New York State allows us to do is that we can take reduced options. So for example, one of the more popular options is going to be this joint allowance full option. So what the joint allowance full option does is, as you can see, we don't get 100% of our pension. You know, we get 89%. So it's a little bit of a reduction there, going from 41,000 down to 37,000. However, if we are to pass away and our beneficiary or our spouse or significant other is still alive, then they would continue to receive this $37,000 until they were to pass away. Okay. And you can take that joint allowance in various different ways. You know, there's a full amount where, again, it's that full 37,000. There's a 75%, there's a 0.5%, right? You can take a quarter of it, right? Obviously, the less that you take, the higher the benefit that initial. So for in this instance, Jane is going to keep receiving. But it all depends on situations, right? What other assets out there? Does the spouse have a pension plan or any other assets out there, right? So it all depends, but most of the time, if people are going to pick the joint allowance option, they're going to pick the full one so that that spouse can continue to receive the full option there. Now, along with the joint allowance, there's also what's called the pop-up joint allowance. Now, the pop-up joint allowance, what this allows somebody to do is, let's, for example, say that Jane wanted to take a reduced option for her spouse. Great. You can see that the percentage is a little bit less, right? So in this example is 89.87. The pop-up joint allowance full is going to be a little bit lower. So 89.21 looks like a couple $100 more on an annual basis. What this allows us to do is, let's say that Jane is with her spouse and the spouse actually passes away before Jane. Jane actually has the ability to go ahead and pop up to the single life option. Okay, so it's a little bit more of a benefit, right? We're going to take a little bit more of a reduction. However, if our spouse passes away before us, then we at least have the ability to go ahead and start taking our single life option. So it pops us up back to that single life option. Again, there's all the differences, right? You can take 75% of that benefit, half or 25%. But I would say the two most commonly used options for the New York State pension are either going to be the single life option or this pop-up joint allowance full option, right? If you're going to take a reduction, right, in this case, if you're going to take an 89.87% benefit, you might as well take the additional, 0.65 benefit or 0.66 benefit to have the ability that just in case if the beneficiary were to pass away before, then you can pop back up to your single life. Okay. Now, what we do for all the clients that we work with and all the members at SAANYS is that, we go through all the different options. So we actually have a calculator that spits this out for us, and we can run different projections and really forecast out which is going to be the best option for that family at that point in time. There's also a couple of options down here. There's a 5-year certain, a 10-year certain. These really aren't that popular. This just guarantees a pension will pay out over the course of either a 5-year period or a 10-year period. These are more so commonly used for very special scenarios. Maybe somebody has a terminal illness, or maybe somebody's not expecting to live past that 5 or 10-year mark, that they can at least guarantee that their beneficiaries will receive their pension amount over that 5 or 10-year period. Now, one thing I always like to note too is when you are going through different pension options, so actually to go back to this slide here, as you're going through different pension options, what are you essentially doing, right? You're taking a reduced amount. So in this example, right, 42,000, we'll call it, down to 37,000, right? We're taking a reduction of $5,000 per year to essentially leave our significant others a benefit. Well, what we're essentially doing is we're paying life insurance through New York State. So this is actually a piece that I grabbed right from the New York State pension website. And it talks about, the different options, the max benefit, the reduced options. But I think it's really important that down here, right, it talks about the considerations. And one of the considerations, right, that the state always tells the members is before you decide, really understand the difference between taking a reduced pension option for your New York State pension versus just taking private life insurance out on yourself, right? Because essentially that's what you're doing. So we go through that with all of our clients and saying, well, does it make sense to take that reduced option through your pension? Or are you better off taking a private life insurance, or do you already have life insurance set up on the sideline where maybe you don't need to take that reduced option? Maybe you're already covered elsewhere where you can go ahead and take this max option, collect the most amount of money, and if you were to pass away, then that life insurance proceeds would then automatically just go to your beneficiary, right? So those are things just to consider, right? As you take a look at your specific pension options, what's available, what's not available to you. Now, life insurance, it's a whole nother animal. You have to qualify for it. It's based off of your health rating. So we go through that. We talk about the pros and the cons and really seeing what's going to be best for somebody moving forward. So just to recap, right, as you take a look at your current situation, number one, find out what tier you're in, okay? If you don't know, a good thing to do is you can log into your pension account online. You can get statements from there. A lot of the times it's listed right on your paychecks, right? So if you know that you are actively contributing towards the New York State pension, they'll say right at the top of your paycheck, NYS, TRS, T, and then 4, 5, or 6. But know what pension you are, so then you can start dialing in and thinking about, okay, well, when is my full retirement age? Is it 55 with 30 years? Is it 57 with 30 years? Maybe I have to wait till 63 on the tier 6, right? So start looking at when your full retirement age is. And then from there, based off of, how you feel about how your career is going, right? Start thinking about what would be a good retirement age for me, right? Maybe do I want to go as soon as possible? Maybe I like what I'm doing. Maybe it's 60, 62, right? All those good things. And that's exactly what we do with all of our clients. Again, we use this program called Asset Map. So we can first see everybody's situation, right? So I know we were talking a little bit about life insurance, right? Let's take a look at those current life insurance policies you do have and seeing, maybe we are funded for, in the event I were to pass away, maybe I should take that full retirement option. Or maybe I have assets, retirement or non-retirement assets on the sideline where I don't really need to take out a life insurance. I have things already set up for my family when I have passed away. So again, this is our program that we utilize. And then what we do is we can start projecting out and forecasting somebody's financial picture. So these target maps are really good because we can plug and play all the different options that are available. Should we take the single life? Should we take the reduced option? And how is that going to affect our retirement funding down the road? So we can do that for different options if we know what age we want to retire at, or we can do that for different ages, right? Hey, Joe, should I continue to work an extra 5 years, even though I don't really need to. Well, this is how it's going to increase your pension income, right? So these are all conversations that we have with all of our clients. It's really determining and seeing what's going to be the best option for them. Is it retiring early? Is it retirement later? Taking the max option, reduced option, right? Everything included in there. Great. So that's all I had for everybody today, right? Just a run through of the different tiers, how they work, how they're calculated, right? As well as the payout options there. But what I will do is I'll stop sharing my screen here. We will go to the chat. I'll pick out some questions here. Yep, so 52 with 30 years, you have to be 55 with 30 years of service. So once you get to that 55 mark, you'll have those additional 3 years to retire early, or to retire with your full retirement age. If you do retire earlier than that, then there will be a reduction from your pension, which we obviously don't want to have happen. So we can run some different scenarios to show you the difference there, but full retirement age is going to be 55 with 30 years. You got to have both of them for that full age there. A lot of people are asking about, special scenarios. We run pension options for everybody. So if you are interested in taking a look at your specific situation, right? If you don't have the 30 years of service, or maybe you have the age or anything like that, it's kind of mismatched, reach out to me. My information that was on the slideshow, I can pull it up, put it in the chat as well. And I can run you through a pension calculation, and I can send it to you just so you can see all your different options that are available there. Somebody asked about caps on salary increases. Now, those are going to be dependent on your employer or what district you are in. I know some districts, they do have their levels as far as how much money somebody can receive on paper as a salary. And then a lot of times the districts will give them some sort of a back payment to kind of compensate for that. So in those instances, it's going to be whatever your salary is listed with your district. Okay, so if they do start capping you, unfortunately, that's really what the New York State pension is going to look at. It's your total salary of income that you received for that year. Somebody was asking for a copy of this. I can't send this exact document out, but what I can do, I can get the list of all the participants that were on, and I can send out like marketing pieces of the different pension tiers. A lot of what we actually pulled was right from the website. We just equitabled it and put in a slideshow. So I can also include in that email some links to the pension website where you can click on and take a look and read more information based off of your specific tier there. So yeah, I can send some pieces out.
Just to reiterate also, Joe, it'll be posted on our website and our YouTube channel too.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, it'll be recorded.
So by the end of the day, anyone who wants to get the deck can rewatch it on YouTube.
Yeah, a lot of people are asking very specific questions to their situation, right? If you have 29.7 years of service, right, instead of the 30, right? Again, we can run through those specific scenarios in a one-on-one setting and really show you how the calculation would differ if you did end up deciding to retire. But what New York State's going to look at is, again, that full 55 years old with 30 years of service as the early point to go ahead and retire. Sometimes people do switch between different pension systems. That is something you definitely want to take a look at. I know a lot of times, people may start as in the New York State local retirement system, or maybe the employee retirement system, and now they get mapped over in the teacher's retirement system. A lot of times too, maybe somebody worked a part-time job over the summer when they were maybe in college, and now they're technically a tier 3 or a tier 4. consolidating your pension years of service into the correct one is definitely huge. We've had people, they may have had two different pension systems and they were in two different tiers. But if you consolidate one and you take advantage of, a tier 4 versus being in a tier 6, that could really boost your pension and it can make you retire a lot earlier too. So I know those scenarios are, again, very specific to people's situations. Please reach out. We can definitely go through it, answer all the questions that you do have. Life insurance options. So the New York State pension does provide life insurance. To be honest, it is very, very low. It's based off of your actual pension income that you do receive based off of what option you do select. The first year, it actually is 50% of your retirement income. And then every year after that, it drops. The second year, it's 25%. And then the third year plus, it's only 10%. So it is a very small benefit, where a lot of people will earmark that specific pension or that life insurance payout for like a final expense or a burial cost. But it's definitely not enough for somebody to go ahead and bank on to provide for all the debts or provide for their family for years to come there. So there is a very small life insurance option, but again, it's very, very minimal. All right, let's look at a couple more here. Yep, correct. So somebody's asking about tier 6. So the tier 6, it's actually a 2% increase on anything over 20 years of service. So once you hit that 20 years of service, you actually get 35%. And then anything additionally over 20 years of service, it's the additional 2% per year. So that is nice. You can really bank up if you do work, past that 30-year mark. You could really create a nice pension stream of income for yourself there. Somebody's asking about Social Security. Good question there. Do you recommend taking Social Security when eligible in case it's not there later? It's a very good question. I think it really depends more on somebody's situation. I wouldn't recommend somebody taking it early just because it's there right now and it could be gone. Because is that really the best interest for the person? Could be, could not be. That's something that we could talk about, really looking at your retirement funding and seeing, does it make more sense to take it at 62 versus 67 or 70, that later year. Somebody asked about unused vacation and sick day pay. So those are going to actually be paid out into your retirement. Most of the school districts now are requiring a 403B to be set up, and you don't have to make contributions to it, but just to be set up. So then those sick day pays or those buyback days will get dumped into your 403B retirement plan. So very important, check your contract, seeing how many days do qualify, how many days can you bank up, but then also too, what is the dollar amount per day that can be dumped in, so then you don't lose out on that benefit. Somebody asked about kind of transitioning between the pension systems, right? So if you start in the teacher's retirement and then you go to the employee retirement, does it affect it? It doesn't affect it. So all the tiers are the same across the board. Doesn't matter if you're a local retirement, employee retirement, or the teacher's retirement. All the tier calculations are the same. However, you do just need to do the correct paperwork in the process to transfer those years of service, let's say from the teacher's retirement into the employee retirement or the local retirement system. My recommendation, do that as soon as possible. That process of transferring years of service between those different tiers, or not the tiers, the different systems, does take a very long time. Right now they're quoting people about a year it takes, so a full 12 to 18 months to map those over to the correct pension system. So, definitely log in, give them a call, whether it is the teacher retirement or local retirement. They'll send you the paperwork, but I would recommend do that sooner than later because it does take about a year to a year and a half to process that. Somebody asked about tier 6, the vesting schedule. So yes, you do only have to be in tier 6 for 5 years now. It used to be 10 years to be fully vested. But now it is only 5 years, matches with tier 4 and tier 5. So that is correct. Yep. Somebody asked if there was a charge for the asset map or the target maps. It's completely free to work with us. We don't charge financial planning fees or anything like that. Essentially, we would just set up an introductory meeting, learn a little bit more about your financial situation, some of your goals, your objectives, and then we would customize and build out your own asset map and your own target maps for you to take a look at. So it's completely free. There's no financial planning fee or charge associated with that. Somebody, again, more specific question, but saying that maybe their pension statements don't line up with the current tiers. I would call your system there. If you are in the TRS, so the teachers retirement system, give them a call, and just making sure that you are in the correct tier. Sometimes they do make mistakes. We've had a couple of times where years of service didn't map over correctly, or they didn't have the correct income numbers for some of our clients. So definitely double check on that, give them a call. Now, calling these pension systems, sometimes they can be a very long wait time. So we've had the most success if we are going to plan on calling one of these customer service, call them right in the morning, right when they open up, or right before they close, like about 20 to 15 minutes before they end up hanging up all their lines. Those are really the best windows to kind of get in and talk to somebody pretty quickly there. Somebody asked, is there really any benefit for staying extra years past 30 years of service? It really depends. I always like to say, yes, you are going to receive a higher pension income. Obviously the more years of service you build up, your income may increase again, depending on what your contract looks like. So yeah, you're going to have a higher pension benefit, but then the downside of that, or the con to that, is you're continuously working. Right. So it all depends, right? It's all personal preference. It really depends on, your career, right? Are you ready to go early versus later? Do you enjoy what you do? But then also too, based off of whatever retirement living expenses you may need or have or want for your future picture. Sometimes people do need to work longer to get a higher income for their future years. Some people, the pension is more than enough to pay for all of their living expenses, so they can retire, and it's not really going to be that big of a difference. One thing I didn't end up mentioning, which I think somebody asked here in the chat. So taxes. So how is the pension taxed? So you are going to have to pay federal taxes. So that will always remain the same. However, if you do stay and you retire in the state of New York, there's no state income taxes. So it is a nice benefit. A lot of people, yes, New York is a very high tax state compared to other states. But for your New York State pension, if you do stay in New York, it's completely state income tax free. You just have to pay the federal tax. Now, if you do end up moving to another state where they may have a state income tax in your retirement time, then you would have to pay that state tax there. So that is something to consider too, is that if you do retire in New York while having a New York State pension, you only have to pay federal tax, but you don't have to pay the state income tax. Good question. So somebody asked, is it really just the spouse or a domestic partner or a significant other that can be named as the beneficiary? The answer is no. So you can name anybody that you wish as the beneficiary of your pension. Now, a couple things about that. Number one, there is a time period as far as when you can change your beneficiary. It's only 30 days. So once you elect to start receiving your pension, you have a 30-day window to change your beneficiary if you would want to. After that 30-day period, it is locked. So you can't change your beneficiary. It's locked in there. Now, the second thing is that a lot of times people will ask, well, can I leave? Well, maybe I don't have a spouse or I don't have a significant other. Can I leave my kids as the beneficiary? The answer is yes, you definitely can. However, those reduction amounts that you saw there, if you wanted to take maybe one of the joint allowance options, or maybe it was the pop-up option there, those reduction amounts are based off of your beneficiary's date of birth. So if you do list somebody who really isn't in the same age range as you, it doesn't really make sense to leave your pension to one of your kids, or maybe it's a niece or nephew or something along those lines. I've run numbers before where, somebody wanted to leave their kid as the beneficiary. We ran the projections, and instead of receiving, their full pension option of the 60,000, it dropped their pension all the way to 15,000. Right. So at that point, it doesn't really make sense to take that much of a reduction just to leave something behind to one of your kids. Actually, back in the day, people used to do that because the dates of birth weren't based off of those reduction numbers. New York State found that out pretty quick, and then they ended up making a change there. So again, yes, you can leave it to whoever you want. However, it's their date of birth that's going to determine those benefit and those drop rates. So again, it really doesn't make sense to leave it. What we typically recommend is if somebody doesn't have a significant other or somebody of the same age to leave their pension to, recommend take the single life option. And then if you wanted to leave something towards your kids, look at getting private life insurance to pass down to them there. Yep. And then I got a couple more questions based off of that. So that's good.
I know there might be a lot of questions, Joe. I don't know how much time do you have, but is there ways that people can get in touch with you, or like for one-on-ones?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'll do, I'll share my screen again here. So here is my contact information. Oh, hang on. Okay, can you see the screen? It should say thank you.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, perfect. Yep. So here's my contact information again. That's my office number. So you can give me a call there if you were interested in setting up a time to meet, or you can just shoot me an email. I'm in and out of meetings, virtual meetings like this, seminars, presentations, one-on-one meetings all day long. So probably your best bet is to shoot me an email. So it's just joseph.scro@equitable.com. Shoot me an email, say that you're on the SAANYS presentation. Love to set up a time to just chat with you one-on-one, and then we can dive into your specific scenario, take a look at your pension options, and then go from there.
Yeah, I highly recommend scheduling a call or appointment with Joe, just because we don't want to take up too much of his time and we're a little over. But there are a lot of questions left. So definitely feel free to reach out to him so you guys can ask your individualized questions and he can give you help with that. Again, for those who want, this is recorded and it is going to be posted on SAANYS.org and our YouTube channel. So this will be posted sometime by the end of today. So if you want to recap and you'll see questions that he answered, it'll be recorded and posted on the YouTube channel. So thank you all for joining, and thank you again, Joe. Again, his contact info is here. It'll be on the YouTube channel if you also need the contact info. And thank you for the presentation.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully you have a great weekend. And we will see you all soon.
All righty. Bye-bye.